It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, and I had no idea that my life was about to take an unexpected turn. I'd been running errands all day, feeling the weight of the busy schedule pressing down on me. The sky was overcast, and I had a few minutes to spare before heading back to my usual routine. I decided to stop by a local coffee shop, one of those cozy little places with mismatched chairs and soft music playing in the background. I walked inside, the warmth of the place immediately embracing me. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and I could feel my shoulders start to relax. I stood in line, scanning the chalkboard menu, wondering whether to try something new or stick with my usual cappuccino. As I waited, I noticed a man sitting by the window, lost in a book. He was completely absorbed, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the afternoon light. There was something about the way he was reading, his deep concentration, that made him seem calm, even though the world outside was moving quickly. He didn't seem to notice the bustle around him, and for some reason, that quiet presence caught my attention. I was so caught up in watching him that I didn't even realize the barista had called my name. A little embarrassed, I stepped forward to grab my drink, my eyes still flicking over to him. That's when I turned to leave, and, of course, I bumped right into him. My coffee nearly splashed over, and I quickly apologized, flustered by the sudden interaction. "Oh, no, it's fine," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "I should have been paying attention." I looked up into his eyes, bright, kind eyes that seemed to hold a mix of humor and something deeper, as if they were seeing more than just the moment. For a split second, time felt like it had slowed down. His smile was gentle and reassuring, and it caught me off guard. After a brief exchange of awkward apologies and polite smiles, I quickly stepped back, feeling a little too shy to say more. I grabbed my coffee and left, but something about that brief moment stuck with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that our paths had crossed for a reason. The days passed, but I couldn't seem to get that brief encounter out of my mind. Every time I walked past the same coffee shop, I found myself wondering if he would be there again. Was it silly to think that one brief interaction could lead to something more? I dismissed the thought. After all, I had no idea who he was, and there was no real reason to expect that we would cross paths again. But then, almost exactly a week later, I found myself standing in line at the coffee shop once more. The familiar hum of conversation and the comforting scent of coffee greeted me, but today felt different. My heart skipped a beat when I looked up and saw him sitting at the same table by the window, engrossed in his book once again. This time I was determined not to be a mere observer. I walked up to the counter, my mind racing. Should I say something? Was it too soon? I tried to push those doubts aside and focused on getting my drink. I couldn't shake the feeling that something about this moment was too significant to let go. As I waited for my cappuccino, I caught his eye. He gave me a small, shy smile, and for a moment, it felt like the world had shrunk down to the space between the two of us. My heart fluttered, and I felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. I hadn't expected to see him again, and now here we were, sharing a moment of connection that felt more meaningful than I could explain. I took a deep breath and walked over to his table. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual. "I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but I think we bumped into each other last week." He looked up, surprised at first, but then his expression softened. "Oh, yes, I remember you. I'm glad you came over." That simple exchange was enough to break the ice. We started talking about the book he was reading, and from there the conversation flowed effortlessly. We shared laughs, thoughts about life, and somehow, in those few minutes, it felt like we had known each other for far longer. Our conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in the presence of someone who truly understood me. We talked about everything from books and music to the small, quirky details of our everyday lives. I was surprised by how comfortable I felt, as if I had known him for much longer than just a few minutes. After a while, there was a brief pause in the conversation. He set his coffee cup down and looked at me with a kind, thoughtful expression. "Would you like to go out sometime? I mean, outside of the coffee shop?" he said, his voice soft but sincere. My heart skipped a beat. I had been wondering if this was where things were heading, but hearing him say it out loud made it all feel real. A warm smile spread across my face as I nodded. "I'd love that." We exchanged numbers, and it felt surreal that something so simple could bring such excitement. We agreed to meet up the following weekend for dinner at a cozy little restaurant downtown. As we parted ways that afternoon, I couldn't help but feel a rush of anticipation for what was to come. It had been so long since I had been excited about a date, let alone with someone I barely knew. The week leading up to our first date was filled with a mix of nerves and excitement. I found myself thinking about him constantly, wondering what our time together would be like. Would we have that same connection in person? Would we enjoy each other's company outside of the coffee shop? Finally, the day arrived. I spent hours getting ready, picking out an outfit that felt comfortable but special. I wanted to look my best, but I also wanted to feel like myself. When I arrived at the restaurant, my nerves were a little on edge, but they melted away the moment I saw him waiting by the door. He looked just as nervous as I felt, but when he smiled and waved, it was as if all my worries evaporated. Dinner was everything I had hoped for and more. As we sat across from each other at the small candle-lit table, the conversation flowed effortlessly. There was something magical about the way we connected, like we were discovering not just each other, but the ease of being understood. We shared stories about our pasts, our families, our dreams, the things that made us laugh and the things that made us who we were. Every moment felt intimate, not because we were sharing deep secrets, but because everything felt so natural. When the food arrived, we both laughed at how we had ordered almost the same dish without planning it. It was one of those small moments that made me feel like the universe was nudging us together. He was funny and charming in a way that made me feel at ease, and I could see how much he genuinely cared about what I had to say. As the evening wore on, I realized just how rare this kind of connection was. There were no awkward silences, no forced attempts at conversation. It was like we had known each other for much longer than just a few hours. We talked about everything: our childhood memories, our passions, the dreams that kept us awake at night. And with each word, I felt a little more drawn to him. When the night came to a close, neither of us seemed eager to say goodbye. We walked outside together, the cool evening air brushing against our faces. He turned to me, his eyes soft and sincere. "I had a really great time tonight," he said. "I hope we can do this again sometime." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I'd like that," I replied, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. He leaned in for a gentle hug, and for that brief moment, everything felt right. It wasn't just a first date. It was the beginning of something special. As I drove home that night, I couldn't stop smiling. I knew things weren't perfect, and I wasn't expecting them to be, but there was something undeniably exciting about what was unfolding. Maybe this was just the start, but for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about where it could lead. Have you ever experienced a moment where everything just clicked with someone? Like the universe was guiding you toward each other? I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed reading about my journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who might relate. Stay tuned for the next chapter of my love story. There's more to come.